Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with a video. This is my video entry to Toddy Walnuts 1,000 subscriber contest, and the paper for it is right here. We have to answer 10 questions. I'm holding 5, but imagine there's 2 hands up. 10 questions. Basically, this is the getting to know you one. So question number 1 was, if your house were to burn down, what would you run in to save? And this was actually kind of a tough one for me because I own quite a few expensive comic books. I own some framed, signed artwork. I own comic books that have been autographed. I own movies that are autographed. I own a lot of stuff that doesn't just have monetary value, but they have personal value to me. So I've got 2 items. This is either or, whichever one has the least amount of fire around it, I guess would be the answer. But either this, my signed slip of Hellraiser, which is autographed by Doug Bradley, which I need to get a tape for this one. But this signed slip of Hellraiser, either this signed slip or this Bad Mama Jamma right here. This is the big one. This is the one I was thinking about just putting as number 1, but I also wanted to, but this is the one I wanted to just straight up say, but I felt like I couldn't, I don't know whether or not I could actually leave behind that slip of Hellraiser. But this is Watchmen issue 12, original print from 1987. This is a 30-year-old print. As of next year, this will be a 30-year-old comic book. And I have kept it in the original slip. I have not taken it out at all. I have not taken it out and read it. I do own the Watchmen graphic novel, which I have read many times. But this is a treasure of mine. This was the first issue of the original Watchmen series that I ever bought at a convention years ago. And ever since then, I haven't taken it out of this sleeve. And for good reason. I do own issue number 6 and number 3, both original print as well. But I like the cover, I like the artwork on the cover for this one the most out of the ones that I own. I'm working on getting the entire series of original print issues, but this is my favorite one that I own currently. I need to dust some of the comic books I have on display in my room. But that is, for question 1, that is the answer to that. Either that Hellraiser slip or Watchmen issue number 12. The next one was, if you were trapped on a desert island for a year and you could only watch 3 movies, what would they be? And I would have to say that the 3 movies would probably be Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like always, I always point this out, but there's a picture of myself and Bruce Campbell right there. A Clockwork Orange, Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, also one of my favorite movies of all time. I own 2 different editions of A Clockwork Orange. I own about, let me look here, 1, 2, 3, 4 different editions of Evil Dead. But I've also gone to a screening of A Clockwork Orange in 35mm, and it was a very, very nice, very beautiful experience at the cinema. And also, and I figured since both these movies are kind of grim and dark, I would go for something a little more lighthearted. So I would say, I have to say the third movie would be Kevin Smith's Clerks from 1993. The first Clerks, the first one that was in black and white, is one of my favorite comedies of all time. And it's a movie that I really relate to as somebody who works of a very, very monotonous minimum wage job. I can definitely relate to it. I related to it before I had a job, and I definitely relate to it even more now. But I think it's a very, very funny movie. Next was, what is the CD that is currently in your CD player in your car? I actually went out and checked, and it is actually the newest Rob Zombie album, Electric Warlock Acid Witch Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser, and it is a really kick-ass album. I love that album. It has such beautiful tracks as the hideous exhibitions of a dedicated gore whore, everybody's fucking in a UFO, Super Doom Hex Gloom Part 1, The Killer Rocks On, It's absolutely just absolutely insane. As for what is in my DVD and or Blu-ray, VHS, VCR, nothing's in my VCR currently, nor in my Blu-ray or DVD player. But the movie I can remember being in there the most recently is probably Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak. I bought a copy of that a couple like a week ago, and I rewatched it because I remember really liking it, and it's still as good as I remember it being. But that was the one. That's the one I remember being in there most recently. Next is give a shout out to a YouTuber you feel is underrated, and I'm going to give a shout out to my good friend Andrew. He is on my weekly Wizards of Gore stream. If you haven't watched the Wizards of Gore stream, check them out. They're all archived on my channel, so you can watch them. It's basically, we start off with doing an audio commentary and or reaction track to a film, and then we just kind of go off on a tangent and talk for however long until one of us says, okay, it's time to stop this shit. It's a very fun little thing. We're looking to have guests on sometime, and we're doing this, we're going for weekly, and we're doing it weekly so far. I don't know if there's going to be a stream this week, maybe not, but I would like to give a shout out to Andrew. He's just starting out. He's a very nice guy, very cool guy, and he definitely deserves a bit of attention. And I'm also going to remind him to keep his uploads frequent. The next one, first YouTuber you ever subscribed to. This one is hard for me because I started my channel in like about 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember when my channel started out, it was a gaming channel, and I was playing video games and thinking I was like really funny, but really I was being very stupid and cringeworthy. I've deleted most of the old videos, and I've focused, and somewhere along the line I decided, hey, why not just talk about movies? And then I started reviewing movies, and now I actually do straight up actually review movies, unlike I did but a few years back when I said I would review movies. I wouldn't. But one of the first people on YouTube I ever subscribed to was a YouTuber by the name of, at the time, OMFG Kata, who is now Jesse Cox. That's his real name, and he changed his channel to his actual name, Jesse Cox. I haven't watched anything from him in a while now. I haven't been keeping up on anything he's uploaded. I've been busy as hell recently, and I'm subscribed to so many people, and I'm mainly still subscribed out of support. I haven't watched any of his videos to actually confirm whether or not he's still producing good content, so I can't say anything along those lines. Next is if you could meet any movie star, dead or alive, who would it be? Absolutely Samuel L. Jackson. I would love to meet Samuel L. Jackson. He is absolutely amazing in anything he's in. Even if it's a really bad movie like Deep Blue Sea, or if it's something amazing, and one of my favorites like Pulp Fiction, he is just so great. And I love Samuel L. Jackson. He's definitely one of my favorite actors of all time. As for the next one, this one was kind of a doozy to figure out. I forget which one comes next because I didn't actually write it down, but I know the next two questions are best artwork on an edition of a film you own, and one of them is the most overrated and underrated movie. So I'm going to do the overrated one and underrated one first, because I figured that would be, I'm pretty sure that one was the first one, but as far as overrated movies I own go, and please do not get mad, because a lot of these are movies that people hold as classics. And please don't get mad and unsubscribe from me for this, because all of the movies I'm about to name, I still genuinely like these movies, and some of them I even love, but I still gotta say that they are a bit overblown. Starting off is, and instead of just doing one, I decided to do like top 4 for both of most overrated and underrated. Starting with the first one, it's Insidious. Insidious, I saw this one when it came out in theaters, and I liked it, and I thought it was great, and then I rewatched it, and it's okay-ish. It's a little too over the top, I would say, at times, for it to be actually scary. it's okay. I think this film, as well as James Wan, every single film from James Wan is, or I think James Wan as a filmmaker is a very overrated guy. Um, I mean, honestly, if you really look at it, all he did with Saul was take something that had been going on in other countries for years, which was extreme cinema, and bring it to the mainstream. But still, I still genuinely enjoy Insidious and Insidious 2. They're very, very entertaining, very fun kind of popcorn movies. But I feel that they're very overblown. They're not the scariest movies ever. Another one that I feel is not the scariest ever, but is still a movie I genuinely, genuinely enjoy. I do think it holds its place in history, and I do think it's a good movie. I just think that people overblow it way too much as this ultra scary, ultra gory, ultra controversial movie, when in reality, I wouldn't say it's any of those things. I'm, of course, talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I only own one edition of, mainly because I like this movie, and this edition of it is nice enough. Is nice enough for me that I don't really want to upgrade to the Dark Sky films like Blu-ray of it or anything like that. Look, and I'll say it again, I do think this film is extremely overrated and overblown and oversaturated and overexposed in the mainstream. I'll still say it's a great, great movie. Because I still do think it's pretty entertaining, pretty good movie. Another one is Hitchcock's Psycho. Look, I don't even know what to say anymore. This is another one that I do think it's a very good movie, but I do think it's a little bit overblown and overexposed and even overspoiled at this point. The whole twist where it turns out that it's actually Norman Bates and he dressed up like his mother and killed these people, that is like, it's just so overexposed and overspoiled to the point that it's not surprising. It's not as surprising as it was some 50 years ago. I would say a film that I think is very similar and a better film because it is not overexposed and over spoiled, and it also has a very big twist that kind of just absolutely makes the film a marvel, is Le Diabolique, which is a French mystery kind of film noir horror film from 1955, came out 5 years before Psycho, and it did a very similar thing with it having a twist ending and it building up all this tension and atmosphere and being intensely creepy. And then, and the thing is, nobody remembers Diabolique. Nobody remembers it. Nobody remembers how it ends. Nobody remembers the twist or the ending or whether or not what happens at the end actually happens or anything like that. While this is so overspoiled and so oversaturated, again, it is a masterpiece of filmmaking, but I do think it really isn't that great. And finally, on to the one David Lynch film I'm going to mention, which is Mulholland Drive. I bought this copy of Mulholland Drive from a flea market for like $2, and I still feel like I paid too much money for it. It's apparently was originally supposed to be a TV miniseries, which is why it wasn't fully realized, but I still think that it's still really overrated and oversaturated and overexposed, and it's way too confusing, and I feel like it tries way too hard to be twisty and everything, and the thing is, it's also heavily inspired by Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, which came out in 1997, and Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue is a near perfect film and tells a somewhat similar story to this one, but does it in less than 2.5 hours, and tells it in a way that is interesting and keeps you involved and doesn't try super hard to be different and edgy and artsy about it, while this tries really hard. I won't say that this isn't a well-made movie, it's very well-made, but to say that this is one of the best films ever made, I feel like is kind of an atrocity when we have, films from Kubrick that are really good, that are not considered to be some of the best. Next, on to the most underrated. movies in my collection. First one is The Sentinel from 1977. This is has a Scream Factory release, so it's kind of started to find its cult following. I still think it's a very underseen movie, and I feel like it should be held up there with the contemporary classics of the 70s and 60s, like The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby, for example, and The Omen. I really think it should be held in high regard like those films, because this film is amazing, and it's still a kind of shocking and it's immensely creepy movie, even if it was made nearly 40 years ago. I genuinely love this film, and I bought it on a whim for like $15, and I think I say this is one of the best blind buys I have ever made. But yeah. Next is a release from Arrow, which this is Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, which I reviewed on my channel, and I thought it was an absolutely amazing, low-budget, really, really creepy, atmospheric, surreal horror film, and again, it kind of has this small cult following, but I still feel like it's very underseen and underrated, and yeah, now that it has a nice Blu-ray release, it's going to get a bit more attention, but I feel like it's not getting enough, still not getting enough attention. I feel like they should really do a individual release of Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, but still, it's a film that very much, it's weird imagery and sets, a combination of like kind of the sets and imagery and atmosphere of something like the original Carnival of Souls, for example, while adding some Herschel Gordon Lewis style exploitation and gore to it for good measure. And I really do think this is a classic of 70s of lost 70s horror, or just 70s like surreal horror in general. Next is Things, the first ever Canadian shot on Super 8 gore film. This one is really bad, but I feel like it's kind of I feel like it's a great movie as kind of an unintentional art film. So I feel like this film is immensely underrated, and especially immensely underrated if you look at it from a so bad it's good perspective, because I do think this is one of the best bad movies I've ever seen, and I never see this mentioned when it comes to great bad movies. Another one that is a great bad movie that I think is immensely underrated and underseen, and I do think that this film is a great little kind of 70s like weird, gross out, shock horror comedy. It's The Worm Eaters. The Worm Eaters, it's so bad and terrible, and I feel like it's immensely underrated amongst the bad film community, amongst the so bad it's good amongst bad movie fans. It's very, I think, underseen and underrated, and I absolutely adore it in every way. And that is my 4 for the best, for the most overrated and underrated in my collection. Next is artwork, and instead of going through and picking like the stuff that you would usually see when it comes to best artwork, stuff like Suspiria and Halloween and A Nightmare on Elm Street, instead of picking out the stuff that I would say is good artwork, and not even good artwork, great artwork, and it has its place, I wanted to go with some stuff that I think is a little underrated. Starting off, we have the artwork for the pop art edition of Army of Darkness. The artwork on this is amazing, and this is the I think 5th version of Army of Darkness in my collection. I own this movie many times. Another one I gotta mention as a good another one in this kind of top 4 is Evil Dead. Both the kind of hand grabbing the woman by the throat from under the ground, and the one of Bruce holding the chainsaw. Both of those versions of the cover art I think are kind of underrated when it comes to cool looking poster art, especially this one. This one is one of my all-time favorite kind of posters for a movie. Next, we got Microwave Massacre, a movie that I think is immensely underrated amongst bad movie fans, just like Things and The Worm Eaters. This one is very fun and cheesy. It doesn't have the amount of gore you want from it, but it's still fun. And the artwork on it, the original VHS artwork, I think is absolutely amazing. The newly commissioned artwork for it, which was that, is nice, but I don't think it is as good as the VHS artwork for the reverse sleeve. And finally, one of my all-time favorites is one of my all-time favorite kind of weird sexploitation films, but it's well, it's The Life and Death of a Porno Gang. I don't know how many times I've talked about this on my channel, but the artwork on this release and the artwork for the original poster, which is about the same, is great with the van for the porno gang, which is very bright and colorful and covered in dicks and tits, just sitting in a dirty public urinal. I feel like that is a great kind of synonym for how the film really is. It's these weird, strange, kind of eccentric characters in a very dark disgusting, and disturbing situation. This one has always made my top 10 most disturbing movies list, and it will continue to make it, I think. Shit. Alright, and on to the last one, which is a question to Toddy Walnuts personally, and I've always wanted to know this, but Todd, what do you think is the absolute most abysmal, unwatchable, horrendous bad movie you have ever seen? And second part to this question is, what do you think is the best, most fun, entertaining, so bad it's good movie is? But with that final question answered, or well, I guess kind of answered / asked, I am ending the video. So anyway, guys, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.